Hey guys, before I start this video, I want to tell you a couple of things first. First thing, I'm feeling a bit under the weather, so I'm sorry if you hear me sniff a lot. If you hear me cough and sneeze and stuff, I apologize for that, and my voice will probably sound a bit different as well. Also, this will be the first video I'll be doing this week. The second one will be a review slash analysis of Star Wars The Clone Wars Episode 5, or it might be of the entire series, I'm not sure. But, yeah, with those two things out of the way, let's go on to Young Justice Invasion. Unlike a lot of people, I really didn't enjoy this season as much as a good chunk of the comic book fan base did. I really liked what Greg Weisman and his team wanted to do. They basically wanted to make a comic book event come alive on a animated show format on TV. It would basically be this big event with all of the DC heroes and sidekicks and all these iconic characters, dealing with this big invasion from outer space, and was just going to be awesome and stuff. And the premise seemed like it had potential, but it also seemed very risky to me because comic book events are notorious for putting cheap marketing gimmicks, contrived plot devices, and just overall bad storytelling above good characterization. And the hallmark of a good event, Throne of Atlantis, is to actually focus on the characters and make it personal for them and not just be a cheap cash grab. While Young Justice Invasion is certainly not a cash grab, it is devoid of any sort of relatable character. But more on that later. The first thing I really didn't like about the season is the time skip. The time skip would have been fine if it actually served a good story purpose, but pretty much all the things that happened during the time skip could have easily been done in maybe a few months to a year. Like, they really didn't need to skip 5 years. The reason for this is the old cast, which includes Aqualad, Miss Martian, Superboy, Robin, who's now Nightwing, Artemis, and Wally. These are pretty much the only characters, or actually members of the team, that actually push the plot forward. All of the new characters are completely pointless. Some of them go on for entire episodes without saying a word. They barely get any lines of dialogue. They have no relevance to the plot whatsoever, and it feels like all of these new guys, like Lagoon Boy, Wonder Girl, Batgirl, Tim Drake, it feels like all of these characters were put in there for fan service, and they barely have any personality. They are barely relevant to the plot instead of just going on missions and getting their asses kicked. And then I really have to question, why even do the time skip? If you're just going to make the old cast be the only ones from the good guys' side that matter, then why even do the time skip and introduce all these new superheroes when 95% of them are completely pointless to the overall plot? The only new character that is actually relevant at all is Blue Beetle. And now, this is a subjective criticism because you will either like this or hate this, but I've never personally cared for Blue Beetle, and whenever he showed up on screen, I was just immediately turned off by it. I didn't care about him at all. He wasn't really interesting to me on any sort of level, and I just thought making him the center point of the pretty much half the season was just a really, really bad idea. Another thing that I really dislike about the time skip, besides all the new guys being completely pointless to the overall plot, is the fact that none of the old characters really get any sort of development, except maybe Miss Martian. Nightwing has become a good leader. He's become more mature, but he still feels way too much like Robin to me. Like when he was like a kid. He feels way too jokey. He doesn't do enough for me. He doesn't feel proactive enough. He just feels like the same guy he was 5 years ago, except now he has big boy shoes on. And with a different name and a fancier costume at that. He really doesn't seem like he's grown that much of a person. And if you read the comic book, he's become sort of a man-whore a la Bruce Wayne, where he's dated Rocket, he's dated Zatanna, he's dating, Bet Kane, I think, and he's dating Barbara Gordon, and, like, he's dated all these girls, and, like, Wally calls him a dog, which I thought was pretty funny, but overall, he seems like the same guy he used to be, or that he's maybe devolved as a character. Wally and Artemis's whole thing where they actually retired from the superhero life could have been a good plot point, and when they did decide to bring Artemis back as a superhero and have her killed off, I thought that was fantastic for a couple of reasons. It gives the heroes a legitimate reason for wanting to take down Aqualad, because a lot of them were really disappointed for him becoming a bad guy, and him killing Artemis, one of the most beloved members of the team, was really powerful, and it really could have solidified the fact that Aqualad has become this evil guy. Like, he's not their ideal leader anymore. He's become this horrible monster that needs to be taken down at any cost. And Aqualad became sort of badass at first because he had basically like the Luke Skywalker thing going on, where his father was a bad guy. His father was Black Manta. And after Tula died, he sort of went to basically the dark side. He joined his dad, and he basically turned his back on the team, and he became a supervillain. And Aqualad was pretty much the only character of the original cast that was boring. I really, really didn't like him, and I just thought he was completely pointless. Like, they easily could have cut him out, and I would have actually thought the show was actually better. And then when he became a supervillain, I thought that was really fascinating, because it showed that not everyone can have a happy ending. All of these people can, and maybe they will at some point in their lives, have this tragedy that just breaks them, and they will become these different people. Like, they'll become supervillains or stuff, or they'll quit or something. And I just thought that was a really cool plot point that they set up with Aqualad. But no, he basically becomes a double agent, and he's basically just a magic plot device. The only good thing that came out of Aqualad being a double agent is Miss Martian's character development. She's pretty much the only one of the old characters that actually grows as a person this season. Sure, she does have her bitchy moments, and that's due to the fact that the creators of the show don't do romances that well, which is really confusing, because they did the romances in Spectacular Spider-Man so well, and in this show they have these weird moments where characters just say or do these really bizarre things that just wouldn't happen, and it's really weird coming from the guys that did Spectacular Spider-Man, which arguably has some of the best romances ever in an animated series. And while Miss Martian does have some of her bitchy moments, I actually thought that she basically evolved the most as a character. She basically sort of went to the very edge of going to the dark side. Over the time skip, she basically started using her powers in a more violent way. Like, she forcefully entered the minds of her opponents, basically took all the information out of them, and left them vegetables. Like, they have no mind, no thought process. They're basically living bodies that cannot think, that cannot act, and she basically turned them into vegetables, and I thought that was pretty brutal. And then when they revealed that she and Superboy broke up, I just thought there was going to be some sort of cliche, dramatic bullshit excuse for them breaking up. And then when you realize that Miss Martian tried to erase his mind once he confronted her about her methods, Superboy was just like, screw this, I can't trust you anymore, you're not the person I love anymore, screw you, we're over, goodbye. And I just thought that was pretty damn good. I thought that was a legitimate reason for these two to break up, and I thought it was done very well. And then like I said, the only good thing coming from Aqualad being a double agent, besides him being just a magical plot device for the creators to have an instant win button against the light, was Miss Martian's character development. Basically, she encounters him on Black Manta's ship during a rescue mission. She enters his mind, she finds out that he was a double agent, and then she immediately becomes distraught when she realizes that she basically did that to an innocent person. And over the course of the next part of the season, she basically realizes using these powers is not right. Like, maybe I could have damaged so many innocent people that didn't deserve this fate, and I'm basically becoming a monster. And she sort of grows as a person, realizes from her mistakes, and she basically becomes a genuinely good person again. And I just thought she was pretty much the only character that actually had a lot of issues, actually learned from the mistakes she did in the past and became a better person, along with Superboy, who actually had a lot of times where he showed that he matured. He showed that he can be a leader in his own right. He showed that he was mature, that he wasn't just a hothead anymore, that he's basically become a lot more experienced and stuff, and you could kind of say that is a good part of the time skip. And I just thought that the way the show dealt with Superboy and Miss Martian was done very well. Outside of that, the new characters lack any sort of personality at all. Wonder Girl barely has any lines in the entire show. Tim Drake sort of has a character arc in the first episode, then they just forget to do anything with him. Batgirl is pointless. Bumblebee, why the hell is she even in this show? Did we really need another stereotype African American chick that basically said, "Oh hell nah, girl"? Did we really need another one of those in our lives? I honestly don't think so. Like, what the fuck was the point of her? I mean, her and Wasp can go die in the fiery pits of hell as far as I'm concerned. I hate both of those characters. And the very fact that we had to see another flying pixie in a superhero show just annoyed the hell out of me. I didn't like Blue Beetle being one of the center points of the season. Like I said earlier, I thought Lagan was really annoying. I just don't understand why the hell this guy was even on the show. I personally wished that when he fought Deathstroke, that Deathstroke was just going to cut his head off, and that would have been the best episode of Young Justice ever, to see that annoying bastard die already. Sadly, that didn't really happen. But what else didn't really work for me? The villain motivations. Like, what the hell was going on by the end? Like, the Light went from these super organized guys in the first season, like they were planning all this stuff and they seemed like a genuine threat. Here they get outsmarted by Aqualad of all people. The deception is almost painfully obvious. Like, the very fact that these guys wouldn't have any sort of contingency on a guy who was the leader of the team that usually kicked their asses back in the day just makes no sense to me. The Light completely vanished during a good chunk of the season. They didn't do jack shit this whole season. And I really have to question, like, what was their end game with the Reach? Like, was that just another phase of the plan or something? The Reach's whole motivation for coming here made no sense. Like, they wanted to harvest us or something. I mean, the Reach characters were really over the top. The Ambassador was just this cocky asshole who went on my nerves. His sidekick Doctor was just this girl who said, "I told you so, I told you so." Black Beetle was just this angry guy that wanted to kill everybody. And I just thought it was kind of funny when he fought Aqualad, and Aqualad just said, "You are alone," and Black Beetle just says, "I am sufficient," and then they just, start fighting each other. I mean, he did have his sort of charm as that cocky supervillain. He definitely was a powerful bad guy, but he was still way too one-dimensional for me. All of the Reach characters were extremely one-dimensional, and then they have this sort of Deus Ex Machina way of fixing Blue and Green Beetle. They're basically say, "Oh, by combining these ancient hieroglyphics with magic and with technology, we can basically fix Blue Beetle." But then I have to question, you knew about these ruins for about 15 episodes. And Impulse has been with you for almost the same time, and you know that Blue Beetle is going to become the bad guy in the future. So I'm going to question this. Why the fuck didn't you just do this thing with him immediately as sort of a countermeasure or something, and just prevent him from betraying you all? There are a lot of plot points from the first season that really get dropped completely. Like the whole apocalypse thing from the first season is gone. It barely gets mentioned at all in this particular season. The G. Gordon Godfrey thing was actually done very well until the last scene of the season, where we basically find out that G. Gordon Godfrey is actually a servant of Darkseid, and he's trying to sway public opinion in favor of Lex Luthor and Vandal Savage and the Light. What the fuck is up with DC and screwing up all this public versus superhero stuff? Like, why can't there just be a realistic reporter or any sort of person that is against superheroes? When you have these many people flying around, having this much freedom and stuff, realistically, there would be someone who would oppose them. So why would you take a guy who represents the scared people and generally gives us some good arguments for why the Justice League is a threat, and you fuck it up in the last scene of the season by basically revealing he's just a pawn of Darkseid? Why can't you just do the public versus superhero thing right? Why does it always have to be part of some conspiracy, or why does it always have to be fixed through a magic plot device? I don't understand this, and it really gets on my goddamn nerves already. Ugh. Damn it. Okay, what else didn't really work for me? Well, I'm sorry. I know that was a bit weird of me because I'm not scripting this at all. I'm doing this on the fly, but yeah, those are pretty much the reasons why I really didn't enjoy this season. Just had a lot of problems. The time skip felt pointless. None of the new characters were relevant at all. They barely had any sort of personality. The only characters that were relevant were the old cast, which pretty much makes the new guys and the time skip completely pointless. The villain motivations and plans just don't make any sense by the end. Oh, and here's another flaw. This universe is so connected. There's so many hints dropped in earlier seasons, and there's so much foreshadowing and stuff, and this whole universe is so connected, it almost seems cool at first. However, there is such a thing as overdoing it, and I think this show did it. By the end of this season, I did not know what the fuck was going on, and I felt completely lost. It feels like I need to read the 1,500 pages of the Young Justice Wiki before and after every episode in detail and rewatch every previous episode just to understand what the fuck happened in the episode I just watched. There is so much stuff going on. It feels like I'm reading an event and being forced to read the 50 tie-in books all at the same time. But if you don't read the 15 tie-in books, you won't understand the main book. However, if you don't remember everything from the main book and the 50 tie-ins, you won't understand what the hell is going on in the plot. It was just really confusing to me, and I just didn't know what the hell was going on by the end. It just felt like a bunch of random fights going on all over the planet. I just don't know. It feels like Greg Weisman and his team just basically shot themselves in the foot by making everything too connected, by doing too much build-up and stuff and not properly paying it off and stuff, because every episode was build up, and then we're just gonna pay it all off in a 5-second clip of Aqualad revealing the light and the Reach's evil plans to the entire world. And if you didn't basically do a recap of everything that's happened previously in Young Justice, you would not know what the hell is he talking about. What was good in this season? The animation, I think, was stellar. I still don't think it's as good as Legend of Korra. While that show is absolutely horrible and an atrocious sequel to the Last Airbender show, I will say that this is probably a close second to Legend of Korra. And I thought that a lot of the fights were fast and dynamic. Seeing the Justice League and the sidekicks all kick ass against those alien invaders and Black Mantis team was really cool. I thought the way they had, non-powered people fight, meta-humans was also done really well. And yeah, a lot of that small stuff was pretty good, but a lot of the characters felt empty, generic, like they just felt there for fan service. They didn't serve the plot whatsoever, and there were just a whole lot of problems with this entire season. Young Justice Invasion was an experiment that completely failed. I just don't think that you can do one storyline and only one storyline across 20 episodes. I think it could have been pulled off if the delays of the show weren't as severe as they were, because first we saw the first 10 episodes in the span of a few months. That was fine. Then we had the summer break. Then we got 2 episodes, then 5 more fucking months of nothing. and 3 episodes if you count the one that was leaked on iTunes. And then we got another 5-6 months of nothing, and then the show just came back. And by the time it came back, I personally lost interest in it. I really didn't feel like watching it anymore because I was just waiting for another bloody delay to be announced. And since Cartoon Network did such a fantastic job of explaining why it was delayed again so shortly after airing once more, I really just lost interest. I really couldn't care anymore. And the delays might have killed some of my, you know, anticipation for the show. But yeah, this whole season was plagued by a lot of plot issues, a lot of character issues, and a lot of production issues, and in the end, it feels like a failed experiment. I personally don't think that you should ever do this sort of thing ever again on any show. I basically think that the Young Justice Season 1 and the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes route is the best one. Set up a lot of plot points, develop them, evenly, and then close them off at different points during the season, like Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. We're going to focus on the Skrulls a little, then we're going to focus on the Kree, then we're going to focus a little more on these guys, and then we're going to finish off the Skrulls, then we're going to finish off the Kree, and then we're going to finish off the third thing that was going on. And I basically think that keeps the show feeling fresh, and by the time the invasion storyline was finally over, I was just saying, finally, this thing lasted way too long. This should have been like a 5 or 6 arc at most. Like, this lasted way too long, in my opinion. I really can't give this season a grade because it's just so all over the place. I mean, I'm not going to give it a grade. I'm just going to say it's a failed experiment. They tried to do something like a comic book event on the TV format. It failed. I think they shouldn't have even attempted this after seeing the end result. And honestly, if they were going to do another event type thing for season 3, I think it's better that the show got canceled now before the third season fucked it up even more than this one did. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Young Justice Invasion. I thought it was pretty underwhelming. I think a lot of people are going to try and assassinate me. I can already see the sniper dots on my screen, probably aiming for my brain as we speak. But yeah, that's basically what I thought about the season. What did you guys think on Young Justice Invasion? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Tell me in the comments section, because I love to argue with people on YouTube. It's probably one of my favorite hobbies. But yeah, thank you guys for taking your time to watch me rant for about 23 minutes, I believe. I'm the Game Raging Psycho, and I'm out.